Hey guys, Gary here from Desolate Motorsports. Today we're going to be installing our 92 to 96 Ford Bronco and F-series truck fiberglass hood and hood pin kit. We've designed this hood and hood pin kit that is roughly half the weight of stock to alleviate the common failure points we see at the hood hinges at the firewall and the latch assembly here holding the front of the hood down, which eliminates the potential for the hood to come open, swing open, and smack your windshield. We've really streamlined this install process for you guys. For the average do-it-yourself guy at home in the garage, it requires a couple basic tools that most of us all have laying around. The only thing you're gonna need is help from a buddy to remove the factory steel hood and probably line up and install the new factory fiberglass hood. What we're gonna do for you guys is we're gonna take the stock hood, we're gonna throw it up on this scale and show you exactly how much this thing weighs before we jump into weighing the fiberglass one and look at the weight savings. God damn, this thing is so light. Now we got our fiberglass hood. We're gonna throw this thing up on the scale and take a look at this weight savings here. We prepared some of the tools here on the table that you're gonna need to install this hood and hood pin kit. This here is our nutsert tool that we offer on our website with the kit itself. And this is gonna be to install the threaded nutserts into the factory core support. We have a drill and an impact driver. You don't need an impact driver. You could use a ratchet if you don't have it. A couple clip removal tools, some basic wrenches and hand tools here, a couple step bits, drill bits, box cutter to open the box here for the hood pin kit itself. And we've also got a couple hole saws here that you're gonna need to drill the holes in the fiberglass hood to install the hood pin grommets themselves. Guys, keep in mind that this nutsert tool here is an available option for purchase on our website with the hood and hood pin kit itself. This tool is really gonna make it easy to install those nutserts and the core support for the guys that don't already have one of these at home. We're gonna start by removing the factory steel hood before we jump into mounting the hood pin kit itself. And then we'll get into mounting the fiberglass hood and getting it all lined up before we make our final holes for the hood pin grommets themselves. So at this point, you're probably gonna wanna ask for help from a buddy. Once we remove these hinge assemblies here, the hood is gonna get heavy and you're gonna need a hand holding that up to remove all the rest of the stuff here. This truck here is already heavily modified with some of our suspension upgrades and other upgrades that we offer. But for the most part, this hood removal process is gonna go just like your average everyday stock vehicle. So we're gonna start here by removing this hood assist spring and get this out of the way before we jump into removing the actual hood from the hinges themselves. This is a 13mm ratcheting wrench. You could use a ratchet and socket, regular wrench, but this here is a little quicker. As soon as you get this first bolt out here, you're gonna notice that the hood is gonna wanna fall a little bit. See that? You're gonna want somebody to hold the other side and give you a hand there. Now it's a good time to remove the factory spring assembly and get that out of the way so we don't scratch anything during the removal process. These are two 10mm headed bolts. You could use a wrench, socket. We're gonna use an impact here because it's a little bit quicker for the install. We're gonna repeat the same process on this side to get this out of the way before jumping into removing the hood. At this point, the hood springs are removed and there's nothing holding the hood up but me and my help over here. Now we're gonna jump into removing the hood hinge bolts themselves. If your vehicle is equipped with a light here, there is a plug down here at the bottom. Let's get that unplugged so we're not held up by this wire. Along with the plug itself here, there is a little clip that's holding it onto the hood hinge itself. So if you grab that, pop that out of the way, you're now free to get to these bolts here and nothing's gonna hold you up. So keep in mind that before you remove these bolts here for the hood hinges, this hood is gonna wanna drop into the cowl. So you might wanna have either an extra buddy give you another hand or put your hand under here and hold it before removing these two bolts. At this point, the hood is completely unbolted on this side, and as you could tell, it will hit the cowl here if you're not holding it. Now you're gonna wanna switch places with your buddy that's helping you out Come over to this other side and repeat the same process. Now you can just remove the hood from the truck. Now that we got the factory hood out of the way, we're gonna start prepping the core support for the install of the hood pin kit itself. We're gonna start by removing the battery from the factory location. On the diesel trucks, you will notice that they have a battery on both sides, which you will need to remove to get access to this backside of the core support itself. Again, this truck is modified with some of our suspension components here. So you'll see that it is missing a intake assembly, airbox assembly, as well as the windshield washer, tank, and radiator overflow, which will need to be removed to access this part of the core support as well. First things first, we're gonna remove the battery using a 13mm wrench, get these terminals out of the way. There is a 8mm headed bolt down here with this plastic wedge assembly, which holds the battery down to the factory tray. That will need to be removed before actually pulling the battery out of the tray itself. Now we're gonna grab a drill and an 1/8" drill bit, and we need to drill these rivets out for the factory jack rod. One thing you want to keep in mind when drilling out these rivets here for the factory jack rod is we have a wiring harness that spans the width of the core support here. We want to be really careful that we don't drill through and hit this wiring harness. A little trick that I like to use is this metal ruler or any piece of metal. We're just going to set this in there over the wiring harness. That way when we drill through, if the drill bit pokes through, we're not into those wires. Next, we're gonna unbox our hood pin kit and check out all the pieces and components to this. So here we have our hood pin grommets and hood pins themselves, assemblies. Pieces here. We really wanted to make sure that you guys got a really nice product here, finished product. As you can see, they're steel construction, all laser cut, CNC bent. They do have a threaded bung here and they are powder coated. They come with all hardware and nutserts needed to install. Nice hardware pack. So these are all of our components here for our hood pin kit. These are gonna be your top pieces that sit on top of the core support. These are gonna be the back ones that catch the factory channel that goes downward for the core support. These are your hood pin assemblies themselves, and here's all the necessary hardware required to get this installed on the vehicle. Now that we got the battery, the washer and coolant reservoir, and the factory airbox assembly out of the way, our next step is going to be locating these factory 3/8 holes on the back side of the core support channel, and we're going to drill these out to 25/64, which is the required size for our nutserts. Again, guys, if you don't have a nutsert tool, this is an option available for purchase on the website with our hood and hood pin kit. So you're gonna wanna start by making sure that you have the 1/4-20 install bit in the nutsert tool itself, because that is the thread pitch on our provided nutserts. You're gonna start by threading it on to where the tip of it is just poking out of the top, and we're gonna put that in those drilled holes and squeeze this down until they're installed. Now that you got both nutserts here in place, this is the base foundation for installing the first bracket in the assembly. Now you're gonna grab your plate with the DM logo in it, 2 of the 1/4-20 by 3/4 long bolts provided with the washers. You're gonna set this bracket here and get those bolts threaded in. You are gonna see here, guys, that there is a bend in this bracket. and that is to accommodate the factory wiring harness that spans the width of the core support itself and allow for plenty of clearance here. Now that we got the foundation set for our hood pin mount, we're gonna step into the upper bracket here. This bracket's gonna sit here. These are weld nuts here. We're gonna take the 3 supplied 3/4 long 1/4 inch hardware. We're just gonna snug these down for now. During this process, you wanna make sure that when you snug these bolts up, that this plate here is sitting flat on the core support itself. These holes are slotted to allow a little bit of adjustment here. You'll see that the plate is sitting flat here. What you're gonna wanna do now is you're gonna mark all 4 of these bolt holes. You could use a Sharpie or a scribe or whatever your preferred method is. We're gonna use a Sharpie. Now we'll remove those 3 bolts that we just snugged up, and we're gonna get these drilled and prepped for our nutserts. I'm gonna go back to the metal ruler or any sort of piece of sheet metal or anything that you could get stuck in there just to ensure that you're not drilling through the factory wiring harness. You're gonna start by using a really small drill bit to cut your first holes. I like to step up the drill bit size little by little to ensure a good quality hole. Again, this is a 25/64 drill bit that's required to install these nutserts in here. Now that we got all 4 of the nutsert holes drilled here, we're gonna get our nutserts installed using the tool. Now that we've got all these nutserts installed, we're gonna move to installing our top plate here. Start all these little 1/4 inch bolts by hand. We're gonna jump back and get these bolts all lined back up and installed here. Now that we've finished putting on the hood pin assembly on this side, we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing on this side. All right guys, we got our hood pin brackets all installed. Now we're gonna jump into getting that fiberglass hood mounted on the factory hinges. With the help of a buddy to help hold the hood up, you're gonna install these supplied big 1.25" diameter washers and the 9-lock nuts, and get those threaded in on the studs coming out of the fiberglass hood. Our next step is going to be taking a 1/2 inch socket on a ratchet, getting these nuts snugged up on the studs so we can start with lining up the hood and getting proper gaps between the fenders and the windshield cowl. Again guys, we're just going to get these nuts snug because we are going to be moving around the hood, so you don't need to tighten them all the way up. So we've noticed sometimes that these factory hood bumpers here kind of hold the hood up a little high because the thickness of the fiberglass here is much thicker than the factory steel edge. You could either kind of sand these down a little bit to get them to fit, or you could remove them. Because the hood is so much lighter, it doesn't need all those contact areas for support. So whatever you guys want to do, if you want to shave these down and get them to all fit, that's great. If not, you can run just these factory adjustable ones. What we're going to do next is we're going to start lining up this hood with the factory fender and get everything all in order. You're going to want to not only keep in mind these two sides here, but the windshield cowl in itself. If you do see that the hood is sitting a little high here, you can loosen up the factory hood hinges at the firewall, and there's plenty of adjustment there to get this hood dropped down exactly where it needs to go. All right guys, as you can see, we got the hood all lined up. All our gaps are really good. We're gonna jump back and we're gonna get all these tightened up. So that way they're not gonna move around and before we hit our next steps. All right guys, it's really important that you get the hood all lined up, tightened down exactly where it needs to be, because moving forward with the next step, it's very critical. We're gonna get into where the holes need to be drilled on the bottom of the hood for the hood pin grommet itself. I know you guys may have opened up the hardware pack and saw that there was a set of these included, and you probably were like, what the heck are these for? This is an awesome tool that's gonna help you put those holes in the hood exactly where they need to go. You're gonna thread these in, and this is basically gonna be your center punch for the bottom of the fiberglass. And again, it may take you a few times of opening and closing the hood and playing with this adjustment to get them to where they contact the hood just perfectly. What we did here is I grabbed a paint pen. This isn't a necessary step, but it's gonna make it easier for you guys to see exactly how this works. I just put a little paint on top of the point here just so it'll show up better on the bottom of the fiberglass hood when we close it. It's basically gonna be as simple as putting these in, getting them to the right height, and dropping it down. As you can see here, perfect dot on the bottom side of the hood. All right, the next step is I'm gonna start with a really small drill bit and just do a pilot hole through the top and bottom side of the hood based off of our center point marking there. This is our hood pin grommet. Diameter of this surface here is gonna be 1.25 inches. We're gonna take an 1.25 inch hole saw here. Those points where we had pilot drilled through, we're now gonna run an 1.25 inch hole saw through there and open those up to accept these grommets. Now that we've got our holes drilled for the grommets in the hood, you can take these little studs out. We're gonna need those to be out of the way. We're gonna close the hood now, and we're gonna start the mounting process of the actual grommet itself in the hood. Simple as this. Take your grommet, you're gonna put it in here. You're gonna get it through the hood. You can line these up, orientate them however you would like. We're gonna go with the logos out, line these up so they're straight. We're gonna take our Sharpie here, and we're gonna mark all 4 holes. At that point, we're gonna remove the grommet. You can see our marks there. While drilling marked holes like this, I always like to start by using a small drill bit, smaller than 1/8 inch if you got it, and we'll make our initial pilot holes with that. And what that does is it ensures that we stay on our mark. The bigger the drill bit, the more tendency is gonna have to wanna walk around and get you off of that mark. Now I'm gonna grab a 1/4 inch drill bit, and we're gonna drill those holes out with this 1/4 inch drill bit. And guys, while doing that, be mindful that your fresh powder coated hood pin bracket is under there, so let's not jam that drill bit down in there and get that bracket all scratched up. I'm gonna get all those Allen bolts pushed through there and in their holes before we lift it up and get these nylocks installed on the bottom side. Now we're gonna grab a 5/32 Allen wrench for the top and a 7/16 socket to get these all snugged up. All right guys, keep in mind that this is Polyurethane rubber. You don't need to get super aggressive on tightening these. All it's going to do is want to pull these Allen head bolts right through that grommet. So you just need to snug them up. You can see as the rubber starts to form down around the head of the screw, and that's about the time you need to stop. All right guys, we're going to go ahead and repeat the same process that we did on that side on this side here before we install the hood pins and show you guys how that all works. We've got our hood pin grommets installed. The next step is going to be taking our hood pin with the jam nut here and threading this in. It will take you a couple times of opening and closing the hood and taking this in or out as needed, enough for this hole to clear the top of the hood pin grommet itself, just enough to where you can slide this through to lock that down. And you'll see what I'm talking about once we get this all set up. All right, as you can see guys, we've got the hood pins installed. We have the height set here to where our clip will actually go through there. If you need to, you could put something in here as long as the jam nuts are loosened up, and you could, turn these in or out as needed to set up your proper height here. Now that we got our height set on these pins, what you're gonna need to do is lock these jam nuts down. This will require a 7/8 wrench. You could grab an Allen or anything to stick through there to keep this lined up where you want it. If you want the hood pin to go through sideways, that's great. If you want it to go front and back, that's great as well. We like to go front and back, so we're gonna hold that in place, and we're gonna tighten this jam nut. We're gonna do the same thing over here on this side as well. Get this jam nut tightened up, and we're just about wrapped up with our install here. You got your hood pins here. This is the last thing you're gonna need to do. Just slide those through, clip them over, onto the next side, and you're ready to go. All right guys, we've got our hood install all wrapped up. We really hope this video helped you guys out and gave you the confidence in installing this hood pin kit. We really did try to do a good job of making it super easy for you guys to install at home, so you're not paying high shop labor rates. We do know that your next question is, what's gonna prop the hood up? And the answer is, we're working on it. We hope to have that finished up here relatively quick. I will say that our hoods, as well as the hood pin kits, are in stock and ready to ship. They're available on our website. If you have any more questions, feel free to shoot us a call or send an email to sales@desolatemotorsports.com, and someone can get you helped out as quickly as possible.